Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Zachary Dickinson here. Hope you're all having a wonderful week. This is the Saturday video, the book content video. Typically three or so videos a week. This is one of them. So, hope you all had a wonderful week. What is this video about? Well, I just recently finished a book that I've been reading for a while, mostly because I didn't read it as consistently as I wanted to, but I still kept through it all the way through. Because it was a great book nonetheless. So, I read Finding Jesus in the Old Testament, and here's my thoughts. So, what is Finding Jesus in the Old Testament about? Well, it kind of speaks for itself in a sense. It is by David Lumbaugh. He also has authored Jesus on Trial, and this apparently used to be called the MS Code. Butchered that probably. But what is it? What is this book about? Well, this is a deep dive and in-depth analysis of the Old Testament in the Bible, of how it correlates to finding Jesus in every single book in the Old Testament. And so it goes through a variation of different parts. So that is this book. Why did I read it? Well, I want to, as a Christian and as someone who likes to read books, I made the decision a while ago, probably about 18 or so months ago, to read fantasy books, to just chill, relax, have fun reading those books. But also, as I read, to get faster in reading and to help develop my brain more, I also decided to read Christian literature books to also develop my Christian theology and my reading capacity for Christian books. Why did I do that? Well, I wanted to read more and I wanted to know more about different things and different topics. Whether I agree or don't agree with them, I still wanted to know more about Christianity and their books, even if it's a denomination that I'm not a part of. I just want to know more to be able to understand more and to help others understand more, as guiding both myself and others towards faith and along the journey. So now quickly, I'll say, why did I decide to read this book individually? Why, among all the many Christian books, why did I decide to read this one? I don't remember exactly what drew my attention to it, but I kept drawing back to it as the title suggests. It says Finding Jesus in the Old Testament, and, well, many people try to disprove the Bible in saying that you can't find Jesus or you can't say that Jesus has always been around. But since Jesus is also God, and there's the Trinity, three persons in one God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we can prove that the Holy Spirit and the Father have been around the whole time. So why can't we prove the Son? And so this book looks to prove that, and so that's why I was always drawn to this book ever since I heard about it. And so I picked this book up in about January, and I've been reading it ever since. Why did it take me so long? Because it's an in-depth analysis, and it takes me a long time to read those specific books in Christian literature, just because I wasn't really raised to read books, and I've only been reading books for a few years, and I've only been reading Christian books consistently for about maybe 2 years. And so it still takes me, whenever it goes into a deeper bit, and whenever it's my first time reading a new author's books, it takes me a little bit of time to get used to, like how I am currently reading Lord of the Rings and just finished The Fellowship of the Ring, and it took me a while to get in and to get into properly understanding the wording, I'm blanking on what it's called, but the actual way that Tolkien writes, just how every author writes differently. Whether it's easy or hard to read, every author writes differently. And also just Christian books in general tend to have a sharper learning curve to reading them, because they're likely to be more in-depth analysis based than regular just fantasy books are. Alright, so now that we've done what is this book about, why did I read this, why do I read these types of books, now let's also go, do I like it or do I not? So, yes, I'm doing a video about this. Yes, I do like this book. I actually love this book because of what it's done for me in helping to understand different parts about the Old Testament. As throughout the time that I was reading this, I was finishing up reading the prophets of the Old Testament, both from Isaiah all the way down to Malachi. That's just Isaiah's one of the longer ones, and he's known as one of the major prophets, and Malachi's the minor. And so we go from the major prophets down to the minor prophets, and that's the ending of the Old Testament. And so, why do I love this book? Because of how in depth of an analysis and how much David Limbaugh breaks down all the individual pieces that he wants this to be. Because so he goes through the entire narrative of the Old Testament, and then he goes in and does an in-depth analysis on each individual book for a variety amount of pages on how Christ can be found in each of the Old Testament books in timeline order, because not all books in the Old Testament are in timeline order. Most of the prophets in the Old Testament are in order of how long they are, not in timeline order, which always gets a little bit confused. So, what do I mean by goes through in-depth analysis on variation of different things before the books? Well, he goes through the entire narrative, the creation story, the flood, the Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to becoming Israel, the 12 tribes, them having to go to Egypt due to a famine, the Exodus, the time in the wilderness, and then also taking over, being in Canaan, constantly being in wars with the surrounding people around them because they can't follow God properly, and the united to divided to exiled kingdom, and then the return as well. That is what I mean by the topical part. What do I mean by breaking down? Well, the second half or so, or maybe even more than that, of this book is solely devoted to breaking down each individual book in the Bible through a variation of chapters. First two are Genesis, Exodus, then it goes through the rest of the first 5 books, and then after that it goes through a couple of books at a time. It only goes through Genesis and Exodus so much because they're much bigger books in terms of the beginning narrative, and also they're much bigger analysis. Leviticus through the Deuteronomy. Leviticus is mostly laws and policies. Numbers is mostly genealogies and stuff like that. Deuteronomy is a long letter by Moses to the people of Israel as they are about to go take over Canaan. Then we go through just Joshua to Esther, which is just strictly Joshua taking over the kingdom, judges being in the kingdom and trying to take it over still, but also falling into sin. And then the Kings, the Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. That's literally the entirety of coming into kingdom, trying to take it over, falling into sin, so we're not really taking it all the way over. Kingdom, united, divided, and after only 100 years of kingship. Exile, return, everything in between. And then we go into a chapter on the poetical books, which is Psalms, Proverbs, Lamentations, and Song of Solomon. Lamentations is, however, included in the prophets because it is believed that Lamentations is written by a prophet. And then we go through prophets in timeline order. So it's Obadiah through Isaiah, and then Micah through Habakkuk, and Daniel through Malachi. And then there's a quick conclusion. But that is mostly all about this book and why I love it. I could talk much longer about this, but I don't want to go too narrow or too broad. But yeah, that is Finding Jesus in the Old Testament. All right, so I hope you all enjoyed this wonderful video kind of review, kind of just giving my general thoughts on this book by David Limbaugh, Finding Jesus in the Old Testament. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, spend time with your family, have fun, do whatever you normally do on the weekend to relax and get prepared for the next week. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.